Hi there, this is Bruno from Spainguru.es, and this is the Spanish Digital Nomad Visa webinar. Today is Thursday, December the 18th, 2025. A little bit about Spainguru. We've been 10 years supporting expats moving to Spain. Huge community with a total amount of members of more than 150,000. And we have weekly webinars about different visas, moving to Spain, no lucrative visa, Spanish taxes, and now also adding webinars with partners like Ainhoa Manero from Sterna Abogados, expert immigration lawyer, and also financial planners, SJB Global, both in January 2026. All our webinars are free, and always I send you a recording. I'm in fact recording right now. I will send you the link via your email so you can watch it again. We have wonderful reviews on Trustpilot and in Google, about 250 plus reviews, 5-star reviews or very close. So you are in very good hands. You can find Spainguru's services and tools for free, like weekly newsletter that I send every Monday to 15,000 members, a YouTube channel that is getting close to 8,000 subscribers with more than 1,000 videos, a lot of videos about the Spanish Digital Nomad Visa, a blog with more than 2,000 articles, and as I mentioned, huge community. The most relevant group here is the Spanish Digital Nomad Visa group that I highly recommend you to join. Now, if you want to use professional services for your move to Spain, for your application of a digital nomad visa, and much more stuff, you can go here to get expert help or services. And here you can find immigration lawyers, be experienced with the DNB, sworn translators, Apostille services in the US, UK, health insurance, compliant for Spanish visas, medical certificates, tax advice, so tax advisors, tax accountants or gestores, financial planners, and also if you're filing taxes in the US, also for that, as I mentioned, financial planners, mortgages in Spain, expert consultation, real estate services, and much more like shipping, for example, parcel and international moving quotes, pet transportation, learning Spanish for adults, so much more. All those services, all personally vetted by me over the years. So you are in very good hands. And that's about Spainguru.es. Let's talk about the objectives of today's webinars. And remember, you can ask your questions anytime. You can use the chat box in the bottom right corner of your screen. And always remember to add your question mark at the end. Also, if you need to leave early, but you believe that the information that I showed you today is useful, please leave a review on Trustpilot. There's a button there on the top. Let's talk about the objectives of today. Hopefully you will learn how to qualify under the 2025 rules, what documents you will need, and how to apply from Spain or from a consulate, how taxes work, specifically thinking about the digital nomad visa holders, and how the renewals work. And this is the content. We're going to start with the terminology. Okay. First, UGE, this is the office that processes the digital nomad visa applications. Apostilles is a legalization of government documents, okay, or certificates. So there is a group of countries which is under the Hague Apostille Convention. So those countries use the apostille from the Hague, and the countries that are not inside this convention, you will need to legalize your documents via the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. For example, this is the case of Dubai or United Arab Emirates. Sworn translator. This is a special type of translator that can only be appointed by the Spanish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And you can find my recommended sworn translators on Spainguru.es. Autónomo. Autónomo is a contractor in Spain. So if you move to Spain as a contractor or 1099 in the USA, you will register as Autónomo, yes, and you will start paying taxes as a contractor in Spain. You will have to file taxes on a quarterly basis and annual basis. You will have to also claim VAT, okay, and file it and pay it, and many other different things specific to this tax figure. Then there is the Social Security Certificate of Coverage, or A1, that keeps you in the home country Social Security. So if you are an employee and you're able to provide such certificate, potentially you can move to Spain as an employee and not as a contractor. The thing is, not many countries are accepted. Right now, it is the UK, Russia, and Canada who are accepted, those certificates. And the USA, we have been going through different news in the last weeks, so caution is advised. Then there is the padrón or empadronamiento, which is your registration of your rental contract in the city hall of the city where you live, and this acts as a proof of address. Then there is the TIE card, which is different from the NIE. The TIE card is the plastic card that shows your face, that you obtain at a national police station in Spain. You cannot do it outside, okay? And it will have the NIE number on top of it. The NIE, starting with N, is the foreign ID number. This is just a number that you usually would obtain if you apply from Spain when you get your visa granted. If you apply from outside of Spain, you have to obtain the NIE before you apply for the digital nomad visa. And here you can see how a TIE card looks like, more or less. Okay, you can see underlined in red is the NIE number, and then this card specifies what type of residency you have and whether or not you have the possibility of work or not. In this case, obviously, your digital nomad visa enables you the possibility to work from Spain, but of course with certain limitations, like maximum 20% of your income may come from Spanish clients, whereas dependents, spouses, for example, don't have any limitations. Now let's talk about some updates in 2025. Okay, and now we're finishing 2025. Has been a quite crazy year in terms of changes for this visa. You have to understand that this visa is quite new. Okay, it is from 2023, so just 2 years, and still things are changing all the time, unfortunately, and there's been changes of interpretations via the changes of the director of the UGE and other things. But basically, I will take off this so we can read better. At the beginning of this visa, W-2 employees from the States were accepted, okay, via the submission of the certificate of coverage from the USA. But then in 2024, no longer they were accepted. And then at the beginning of 2025, they started being accepted again, okay, for a few months. But now, a few weeks ago, a lot of people started to say that they were being rejected or their applications were paralyzed as W-2 employees from the States. And now there's some professionals that are saying that they got an approval again. So this thing is changing, okay? And we have to be informed. That's why I highly recommend you being part of the Digital Nomad Visa Facebook group, because you get news every single day. You can ask your questions, and you can see that things are evolving all the time. So right now, the situation for W-2 workers from the States is a little bit blurry, to say the best, but this is how it is right now. Unfortunately, I cannot clarify it more. The best solution for this situation is potentially pivot to a 1099 contractor structure, which unfortunately will not leave you with eligibility for the Beckham law or special tax regime that grants you a lower tax threshold. Another thing to have in mind is that in 2025, more documents in the application now require apostilles, especially company certificates. Wasn't the case before. There are stricter checks for business owners to prove real company activity, and professional experience must be backed now by official evidence. As I mentioned, there was a lot of fuss or hype around the possibility of being always eligible for the Beckham law that enabled people to pay just 24% tax rate on employment income. and many other perks, like not having to declare the overseas assets 720 form or paying the Spanish wealth tax, so many more things. But unfortunately, it's important to understand that this special tax regime, people that move to Spain as a contractor are not eligible for this regime. So this only works for employees. As I mentioned before, it is not very clear whether US people working for US companies may move as a W2 employee, and only a few countries are being accepted. Okay. Another thing to have in mind is that the UGE decisions can be quite inconsistent. Okay, and now renewals are stricter, and you have to be very careful when you're gonna renew your visa. Now let's talk about the apostilles. Right now, company registration certificates must be apostilled. Tax or social security reports used as work proof also require apostille. Marriage certificate, birth certificate if you're moving with your kids, or civil partnership for unmarried couples need also apostilles or legalizations. Documents from outside of Spain, they need to be legalized or apostille. We're talking about official certificates, okay? And always when you translate this type of documents, the translations must be done by a sworn translator from Spain, which you can find on spainguru.es. Now, for business owners, the scrutiny increases. Now the authorities will require proof of your company is active and legitimate. They want to avoid people from applying using off-the-shelf or inactive companies. Okay, so if people are doing this, they will be rejected. So in order to prove the activity of your own company, you need to show company tax returns, invoices and contracts, proof of business expenses or investment, and evidence of clients and services delivered. Now, if your company also has your own name or is family owned, there's even more scrutiny, okay? Now, you can apply for the digital nomad visa showing relevant work experience of more than 3 years or studies, okay? Relevant studies. Now, if you are applying with work experience, you need to provide certain documentations, a detailed letter from former employers and clients, where it is outlined your role, your responsibilities and dates. Also, official proof is now required, and depending on how you apply and from where you are applying from, it will depend the type of official certificate that you use to back your work experience, okay? For example, just to give you a few examples, Social Security records using HMRC in the UK, Social Security 750 in the US, detailed report from your current and past companies, 1099s if you're applying as 1099s, so that's tax documents, P60s in the UK, self-employment pages, invoices and bank statements tied to your freelance work, okay? And of course, everything has to match, right? So all these documents need to match your CV and the current job role. These are all updates from 2025. Basically, everything is becoming stricter, okay? We mentioned that the UGE sometimes is taking unpredictable decisions. This is something that you need to be, let's say, prepared for. Sometimes people apply, they get rejected, then they reapply from Spain without changing a single comma, and then they get their visa granted. This has happened, okay? And you can see that depending who is reviewing your case, there could be different requirements, different interpretations with the same file, right? So rejections also may happen even with strong applications. And if you're applying from Spain, reapplying is much better than appealing because appeals can take several months. So you have to apply, if you're gonna apply from Spain, do it as soon as possible. So because you have to apply within the first 90 days, okay? So the 90 and 180 day rule to be in Schengen area. Therefore, if you apply and then you get denied, you have still days left to reapply. So it is important. And also seasonality, something that has an impact. If you apply during the month of July and August, or close to Christmas, for example, they may be stricter or decisions may be more rushed because where still they have staff reviewing these visas, they usually are understaffed because people take holidays around these times and they have a higher workload. And of course, that can lead to even more unpredictable decisions. So those were the updates in 2025. And of course, I mentioned, if you're part of the Digital Nomad Visa group, please try to go every single day, check out what people are publishing, ask your questions, because for this visa, it is incredible how fast things evolve and how difficult it is to obtain information from official sources. But basically, we obtain the updates from professionals who are working on this every day, and they get different decisions or they get different feedback. So it's important to stay updated constantly. Let's go through the requirements and core eligibility criteria for a digital nomad visa. The most important to have in mind is the financial threshold. There is a general consensus that you need to make at least 2,763 euros per month before tax and expenses, so gross figures for the main applicant, okay? And this figure obeys to being 200% of the minimum salary in Spain in 14 pays. Then some people consider it should be on 12 pays, therefore bringing it down to 2,600 euros per month, okay? And as you imagine, the minimum salary in Spain can change every year, okay? This is a government decision to raise it or not. So it is linked to the minimum salary in Spain, and therefore the financial threshold will move up generally if the minimum salary moves up. Now, it's important that you work remotely for non-Spanish customers or companies, okay? And maximum 20% of your income comes from Spain. You don't have to have income from Spain at all, but there's a maximum threshold. You either have university degree or 3 years of relevant experience. You need to provide clean criminal record for the past 5 years and also for the previous countries where you lived. Prove that your employer clients have existed for at least 1 year and confirm that your work is done remotely using digital tools. That's why not every type of work will apply for this visa. Now, if you apply as a main applicant, we said 2,763 euros per month. If you apply with couple, the couple is 75% of the minimum salary, and then every other dependent is 25%. So you can see that if you apply with larger family, the financial threshold goes up. We said amounts are gross. If you're self-employed, income must be shown before deducting the costs. So again, gross figures. People ask, can I use savings if I am a little bit below the threshold? There is no law or rule or interpretation that says a specific number. But if you read in between the lines of professionals, they say that maximum is 200 euros per month you can use by savings. Some people say 150 euros. Some people say 5%. So it is not very clear, but people have mentioned that if you're applying with a larger family, they tend to be more flexible in terms of your share of savings. But you have to understand that this visa is based on active remote work financial proof, okay? And this should be a little share, basically. This income must be documented through contracts, pay slips, invoices, bank statements. So let's go with the checklist, okay? When you apply for this DNV, you'll need a signed letter from your employer or main client confirming your role, job title, job description, paying euros, remote work authorization from Spain, and confirmation the arrangement is long-term. Have to show a contract, which ideally should be without a fixed end date, okay? Why is this? Because if you apply from Spain, you can get the maximum visa period, which is 3 years on a without end date contract. If you apply from a consulate, you get maximum 1 year length, okay? The last 3 months of stamped and or signed personal bank statements showing income, last 3 months of payslips or invoices, the company certificate now with Apostille proving your employer or client has existed for at least 1 year, proof of qualifications or the 3 years of relevant experience, criminal background check and signed declaration, private health insurance for people who don't have coverage. Okay, so you have to have comprehensive coverage in those cases, which are minimal: passport, application form, payment receipt, and photo. And each document must be sworn translated and apostilled or legalized if required. I have a chart or table later on that that will tell you exactly what needs to be translated, legalized, and how. So yeah, if you're applying as an employee, W-2 or A1 certificate insights, it's important, first of all, to clarify whether now these certificates are being accepted or not. The latest news, okay, this can change anytime, really. Your employer must confirm your remote status and your job duties, and the W-2 form can support your income, but it's not enough by itself. You will need a Social Security certificate of C or C or A1 in the UK or other European countries, proving that you're paying Social Security in your home country, okay? Now, if you apply, if you cannot get this certificate to prove that you're paying Social Security in your home country, there is the option that your company opens a subsidiary company in Spain so that they pay your Social Security in Spain, which is unlikely, or you switch into a 1099 or contractor status, okay? Some people have the versatility or possibility to either apply as an employee or as a self-employed, and here's a table that compares the pros and cons of those situations. You can watch the recording later. It's a very long document. And this is a slide that explains the differences, the small differences between the certificate of coverage among the different countries. As we said, right now, only UK, Russia, and Canada are being accepted, okay? And we mentioned that if the company opens, the company abroad opens a subsidiary or a company in Spain to pay Social Security for Spanish authorities for the employee, this is an option, let's say, but many people won't do it. Many companies won't do it because it's, let's say, a complex and costly process, and most of the companies will prefer that you switch into a 1099 or contractor status, which, of course, has certain consequences, okay, in different fronts, like taxes, etc., right? Now, if you're going self-employed, how does it work, right? First of all, if you go self-employed, you will have to pay Spain Social Security and Spain taxes, okay? And the difference is that you not only will have to pay taxes annually, but also you will have to file and pay taxes quarterly, and that includes income and VAT, right? Now, it's important to understand that you need to register as Autónomo as soon as possible. This is what the law says. It is up to the interpretations of UGE at that specific moment when you have to do it. And it will depend also when you obtain the visa. So if you travel to Spain already holding a digital nomad visa, yes, because you obtained it at a consulate, the next thing you need to do is to register as Autónomo as soon as possible. Now, if you're applying from Spain and you receive your visa from Spain, once you receive your visa or your residency approval, you have to register as Autónomo, okay? Now, there's been also a quite asked question, do I need the physical TA card to register as Autónomo, or can I do it directly after I get my DNB approval? The answer is you don't need to have your TA card. In fact, it is a huge bottleneck. Obtaining appointments at police stations is pretty hard. It will take you weeks, if not months, to get your TA card, and you have, let's say, the order of being registered as Autónomo as soon as possible. So don't wait for it. Problem is that some gestores or tax accountants, they are not used to this situation, and they tell you, yes, you will need your TA card before you can register as Autónomo, but that's not the case, and it could have strong implications if you don't do it. Therefore, don't wait until you get your TA card in order to get registered as Autónomo. On Spainguru.es, under Services and Tax, you can find different gestores who will register you as Autónomo for free. They will even give you a first month for free as well, and they are used to the digital nomad visa holders. And these are all Autónomo, these are all tax accountants that work in English and are used to the digital nomad visa situation. You go to services, tax advice, Spain filings, and here we have Spain tax accountants and Spain gestores, okay? And these ones, they can help you out if you need. Let's go with the next slide. People ask, can a criminal record affect your application? And the answer is yes, depending on how serious the criminal record is. Okay, so you have to be careful if you're applying with records. Okay, this can trigger delays, even full rejections. Spanish authorities will look for serious criminal convictions, fraud, drug-related offenses, and also repeated offenses. So yes, in some cases, when these infractions are minor, small, like driving under the influence or, you know, smoking pot maybe a few years ago, this may be overlooked, but depending on how serious they are, this will be evaluated on a case-by-case. So yes, if that is your situation, always go with a professional who will tell you, you know, from their best of their experience, how long, you know, what are your chances of being accepted or not, or what can be done to mitigate this problem. Okay. Now I have some questions here. We're not going to wait until the end to answer them. Let's go and let's see how that goes. Let me see. Always remember that this is not legal advice, and please always check the official requirements. I'm not an immigration lawyer. Considering I need multiple employers' clients in order to reach the income requirement, do I need to present a signed letter for each of those employers' clients when applying for the DMV? That's a great question. I don't know exactly. I'm not very sure. In my opinion, yes, you need to do it, right? You need to explain for each one of your clients. My opinion, but I could be wrong. I noticed that there is no requirement for proof of accommodation address in Spain. When you apply, you don't need when you apply from Spain. Actually, I have an article about this. Okay, but yes, you don't need proof of address, let's say when you apply from Spain, but then when you, for the renewal, definitely you will need digital nomad visa, proof of address. Let me see if I can find the article. I searched Spainguru digital nomad visa, proof of address, and this was asked. Yes, do I have to have my own address? It is not necessary to have accommodation to make application. Depending on the province in which you will be residing, it may be necessary to have housing to obtain the residency card, TIE card. Yes, for the TIE card, you will probably need, in 90% of cases, national police stations will require you to have an empadronamiento. It shouldn't be that way, but that's the way it happens. Okay, so yes, no fixed or permanent address is needed when you apply. You apply online, just showing your passport that you enter Spain on a certain date. Okay, always get a stamp on your passport or get scanned when you enter Spain from outside of Schengen. And if you enter from within Schengen, for example, if you drive from France to Spain or you fly from Paris to Madrid, you won't get an immigration control. So you won't have really proof of your entry into Spain other than your boarding passes and, you know, or gas tickets. So always go to a national police station in the airport or train station or near the border and get a declaración de entrada to have that proof of entry into Spain. And that's one of the documents that you will also submit. Now let's continue. And remember, you can always leave a review on Trustpilot. There's a button there on the top. That will be really helpful for me and for other people who want to find this content, if you think that this is useful what we are talking about today. All right, so alternatives to having a degree, okay, and also about university diploma. Option 1, you apply with a university diploma, which needs to be legalized, officially translated with a sworn translator, okay, and the degrees are not all of them. They have to be a graduate or postgraduate level from recognized institutions and related to your current job role. And the option 2 is the 3 years of professional experience that must be obviously linked to your remote work and current experience. And as we said, supported with official certificates and employer client letters, social security or tax reports, as we said, and invoices, contract, and proof of services delivered. Everything needs to match. Everything needs to be aligned, okay? How to prove freelance or contract experience. You submit a detailed CV aligned with your application. The CV doesn't need a strong translation, can be just a normal or generic translation. Include client letters confirming work history, scope, and timelines. Provide official documents. Okay, as we said, you need to prove with official documents depending on your work status and from where you're applying. And if possible, organize your documents by client or by year for clarity, explaining why you are ordering those documents this way. It's important that you are consistent, okay, and that the job that you are doing relates directly to the experience that you are showing. Let me see. Okay, let's talk about family and dependents. Okay, these are the rules for spouses and partners. The good thing is that you can include your spouse or legally registered partner, okay, and children under 18 also are accepted. There's also adult children and parents with certain conditions. So in order to bring your spouse, showing a marriage certificate or civil partnership certificate, always apostille and strong translated if not in Spanish. Or if you are a married couple, you have to show proof of your shared finance or cohabitation. Cohabitation is the most important, okay? And that will show that you are a stable partners, okay? So you're not a legal partnership or pareja de hecho in Spanish, but you are stable partners because you cohabitate together, okay? For at least 1 year, you need to prove it by using, for example, lease agreements when both your names appear, joint bills, shared bank accounts, and if you have children together, also helps, but it is not the end of your requirement of proving cohabitation. You still must do it. And of course, always remember that the financial threshold now will increase with the more members that you bring, depending on the minimum salary in Spain at that given moment. Now let's talk about children. If you bring children younger than 18 years old, you need birth certificates, okay, apostille and strong translated. Always you need to obtain it again, and that must be an updated or copy of the original certificate that has a certain validity period, depending on the certificate, what is written on it, or the interpretations of the UGE. It could be 3 months, it could be 6 months. You need to show that you're providing financial support to your kids, and if minor, school plans are also helpful. If you're applying with adult children, more than 18, but under 26, you must also show full-time studies, financial dependence, and proof of living with parents. And this is also proven with a certificate that the adult children is not married, like single certificate, it's called. And then adult children more than 18 and over 26, they're only allowed if they're medically or incapably dependent. So you need to provide documentation for that. If you're bringing adopted children, court ruling confirming legal guardianship or adoption. And if you're bringing in parents or in-laws, you must prove real, stable financial and physical dependence, like full support via bank transfers or medical dependency. Okay, so each case will be assessed individually. Okay, I have one question here. I work with 2 companies in the US as remote consultant. I reside in a non-EU Asian country. I have a university degree, a software engineer, and 5 years of relevant experience. My cumulative income is above the threshold. Can I only submit the contracts I have with both companies where my salary and remote work is mentioned? Would it be enough if I have to ask the companies for the documentation? To be honest, I have my own opinions on this, but this visa has been changing so much about the type of documentation in these cases where you are sharing your income from different companies and everything, that I prefer not to give you my thoughts. I prefer that you ask and consult with a professional who is dealing with this type of visa every day, okay, in terms of documentation. I don't want to misguide you or give you wrong information or not updated information, because this is changing all the time. So I'm sorry, but I cannot answer that question. I wish I could be more helpful. Now, let's continue. Bringing children, all dependents, and elderly parents. Okay, we already mentioned this. And we're talking about private health insurance, right? Explained by case. First of all, if you're applying as a contractor or 1099 and you're becoming an autónomo, paying your social security contributions to Spain will enable you to use the Spanish public healthcare sector. So if you apply as a contractor, you won't need a private health insurance. And if you're applying as an employee, it will depend whether you have coverage from Social Security or not, okay? So yes, it is important to clarify your situation to understand whether you need a private health insurance. Usually it's not necessary, but it's important to clarify it before you apply, because you cannot have gaps in your healthcare coverage if that is the situation. Now, there's something that you need to have in mind if you pretend to stay in Spain, if you want to stay in Spain for the long term and want to go after 5 years of legal residency that the digital nomad visa grants you, 5 years, you want to obtain the long-term residency. It's important that there are certain conditions also to obtain the long-term residency after 5 years. There's minimum stay requirements. You cannot be outside of Spain for more than 10 months in the previous 5 years. You can't have gaps in your healthcare coverage, and you can't have interrupted legal residency, right? So all these three very important requirements or conditions to get the long-term residency. And now we're talking about health insurance. Something that is happening is that when you apply from Spain and you get your visa granted, the day in which your visa is granted starts your residency period. And since you haven't still registered as an autónomo, you still don't have access to public healthcare sector. Therefore, you have a gap in coverage, okay, during that time, right? So that time, if that is your situation, since you have a gap, and then when you apply years after for the long-term residency, that gap will prevent you from, if they ask for it, they will see that you had a gap there for a few months, maybe for a month or two, and then maybe you have your your long-term residence denied because of this fact. So it's important to, if you're in this situation, either have the private health insurance coverage, which needs to be compliant, without co-payments, without deductibles, from a company that is authorized to operate in Spain, but have in mind that you cannot have a gap in order to apply for the long-term residency. So it's important. If you need private health insurance, you can use my recommended Adesla's exclusive agent, Carlos Blanco, who is also an immigration lawyer. He can also help you with the application of the digital nomad visa. And also, if he's not doing that, at least he understands perfectly the process, so he can match all your needs of healthcare together with the processing of this visa, right? So you can go again to Spainguru.es services, health insurance for Spanish visas, an exclusive agent, and here you can apply, or you can just ask for a non-binding quote for a coverage that is compliant for any residence in Spain. Now let's continue. Other things that we should mention is when you enter Spain, you need to have proof of entry, and all the forms that you need to submit must be completed fully. Obviously, they always need to be signed, and be careful because any error may cause delays and rejections. You need to be very meticulous and organized. And this is the table that I mentioned you before, which is a summary of which documents need to be apostilled or legalized and which documents need to have sworn translation or simple translation. So you can see the general rule is that official certificates need to be sworn translated if they are not in Spanish, okay? For example, if you're providing a, criminal record from Colombia, that will need to be legalized via an apostille, but not sworn translated because it is already in Spanish, right? So that is the situation with the different documents. We mentioned that savings can be used until a certain level that is not very clear, but no more than 200 euros per month is the general consensus. And also I wanted to tell you the pros and cons of applying from Spain, okay, compared to applying from abroad. Yes, so there are more pros than cons, but not all of them are pros. Most important is that if you apply with an ended contract, you will get the visa for 3 years instead of 1 in the consulates. Okay. Another pro is that when you enter Spain as a tourist, you don't need to wait for an appointment, for example, with the consulate. You just enter Spain and you apply online. Okay, you do it yourself with a digital certificate online, or you do it via a third party, okay, a lawyer or a visa processor. The process is generally more streamlined from Spain because there's one single office that takes all the process from within Spain, whereas in the consulates may have different requirements and there's more variations, interpretations, and also timelines, okay, depending on the consulate. There's also people report having more control over your move in general, because if you move to Spain and you apply from Spain, you're already in Spain, right? And you can start doing things that will help you feel at home faster, like finding housing, etc., right? Or finding schools. So the logistics are, they say they are easier, whereas other people applying from a consulate, they say that actually they had to apply from a consulate because their logistics were better if they applied from home, let's say. If you apply from Spain, no medical certificate or income tax return to prove income and approval. There is also a guarantee, very, very important, if you apply from Spain, that you will get an administrative silence approval if you don't get an answer after 20 working days. Okay, now today or yesterday, people were asking, like, after I get the positive administrative silence, how long does the UGE takes to answer me and grant me the visa? And they say, like, now it's taking about 5 business days, but during the summer, it was taking 20 days, 36 days. They were reporting, yes, someone who got the silence in July got the approval in October even. So yes, it will depend on the month because of the seasonality that we mentioned. And generally, there is a faster turnaround from Spain of 1 or 2 months maximum, okay? Whereas some consulates, they can take several months. I was hearing a consulate in Egypt that was taking many months, like 10 months. So yes, those are the main pros. Now, the cons is that when you apply from Spain, you have a strict 90-day window to do so, okay? So you need to be, let's say, regular when you apply, and that's important. You need an entry proof that, as I said, can be a bit tricky if you enter from another Schengen country. Also another problem is that once the visa is granted, we mentioned it, the residency starts the day the visa is granted. Okay, so you have to be careful with that because of a potential gap in your healthcare coverage. Later on can bring problems for your long-term residency application. Whereas when you apply from consulate, you can choose when, let's say, choose within a window when your visa, you wanted to start it, okay? And virtually there's no appeal process from within Spain. You could say that because it takes many months to get an answer. So if you're lacking days within Schengen, you may have to leave and come back when you have enough days in order to reapply. So that's an issue as well. I have asked people in the Spanish Digital Nomad Visa Facebook group where they apply from Spain, and about 80% apply from Spain, whereas 20% apply from the consulate. Of course, it will depend, especially on the nationality, because some nationalities require Schengen visa. That is the case, for example, of Philippines. Filipino passport holders, they need a Schengen visa. So it is more common for Filipinos who are working in the Philippines to apply from the Manila consulate rather than obtaining the Schengen certificate. That takes time in order to come to Spain to apply from Spain. Here I have a question. So, and this is one that I can answer. Let me see if I see it. All right. It says here, if I apply from Spain, am I able to work remotely while waiting for visa approval? All right, I will tell you. Technically, you are not allowed to work from Spain until you have your TIE card. Technically and officially, okay? But people generally don't do that, right? Still, you will have to pay taxes normally if you haven't become a Spanish tax resident at the time in which you enter Spain. If not 183 days have passed with your physical presence in Spain during that calendar year, you're not technically a Spanish tax resident yet. So for that year, the income that you have generated from within Spain, even working remotely, this is what tax advisors say, you will pay it as a non-resident. And then the next year, when you become a Spanish tax resident, you will file taxes as a Spanish tax resident. But yes, people work from Spain regardless, because it takes weeks, if not months, to get your TA card. Okay, so this is something that it is being accepted, and as far as I understand, no one is creating any problems, because they understand that it can take too long to obtain the TA card to prohibit you from getting your income by working. Right, and this is the typical timeline from someone applying from Spain with the different time frames. You start preparing your documents, normally 1 to 3 months before. Then you travel to Spain, you submit your application right away. You await for the resolution, as we said, up to 20 business days. If there's no positive administrative silence, you will receive your residency that will be valid for up to 3 years if you apply with an ended contract. Working with individuals. What if your clients are in companies? Well, you can also do it. That's okay. And the key is to prove that the relationship with those individuals is stable, long-term, and remote. You'll have to include the invoices with client names, proof of regular payments, written confirmation from the client about your work you do. And for multiple smaller clients, you have to show consistent income across several months. Avoid contracts that suggest you are doing work for Spanish-based individuals unless clearly allowed. Also, people ask about working for NGOs, and these are acceptable if they operate like a company, so you can show consistent activity, legal status, and financial transactions, just like companies. We mentioned that there is a huge bottleneck in Spain in order to get appointments for the TA card with the national police stations or foreign offices. And many cities, especially Valencia lately, which is very common for digital nomads to move to, is having very long delays, okay? So there are there's not too much you can do, but there are a few things to mention. You can check the appointment availability daily, okay? Especially early mornings. This is what people report. You can also be flexible trying to find appointments in nearby towns. They have to be in the same province in where you live, okay? And potentially you could use a relocation expert or gestor to book it on your behalf. And if you do it from Madrid or Barcelona via the UGE, this is also cool. This is also a little hack because they won't require an empadronamiento for you. I have a video about it. And basically, people get an appointment faster in Madrid and Barcelona via the UGE, and they stay at a hotel, even if you're living in Valencia or in Malaga or anywhere else. You travel for one night, you stay at a hotel, and then you go to your appointment, you get your TA, and they won't ask you for an empadronamiento in Madrid and Barcelona. Therefore, you will be able to get your TA card earlier on using this little hack, okay? Otherwise, you have to go through the general, let's say, pathway. And here I have an article. If you search Spainguru, how-to guide, getting your TA, there's all the steps you need to do in order to get your TA card. Now, let's move to taxes and Social Security, okay? So, if you register as Autónomo, you will have to pay Social Security and quarterly and annual taxes, okay? Now, for the first year, talking about Social Security contributions, you will start paying around 80 to 100 euros per month, okay? Then, the second year, depending in which region, for example, Madrid, Catalonia, Andalusia, you can request to get your first year payments for Social Security back. Those 1,000 euros that you paid, round numbers, you can claim them, and after 4 months, they will pay them back. This is called quota cero. Now, the second year, your contributions for Social Security will go up depending on how much income you reported the previous year. Okay, typical range can be around 300 euros. Okay, but these things are also changing as we speak because there is a plan between the government and Autónomo associations to change how they calculate the contributions until year 2032. Basically, they want to increase them and they want to make them automatic, okay, according to your income, okay? Because right now, let's say you can choose how much you want to pay per month. Okay, if you pay more, you get more later on as a pension, for example, or if you have parental leave, you will get paid more money, okay? And you can choose, but now that is gonna be automatic depending on the income that you report, okay? Now, what do you get when you pay the Social Security in Spain? Access to the Spanish public healthcare system, subsidized medicines, retirement disability coverage, parental leave, sickness benefits, etc. Okay. Now let's talk about the income tax. Okay, different from the Social Security. The income tax will depend, the tax, let's say the rates will depend on the type of income. If it's employment income, salary, rental income, etc., that's the ordinary income. And then you have investment income, where you have dividends, capital gains tax, etc., which is taxed at lower rates, maximum 30%. Now, for general income, they go from 19% to 47%. Now, a lot of people think, for example, if you make 100,000 euros, yes, you can see that there is the fifth bracket that is 45% for 100,000 euros income, right? So you say, whoa, if I'm making 100K, I will pay 45% income tax. That's not true, okay? That's absolutely not true. You will be paying an effective tax rate of 36%. I use this example to explain you how the progressive tax bracket work. The way 15K, you pay 30%. For the following 25, 37, and for the following 40K, until you reach 100K income, you pay 45%. Therefore, if you do the, let's say, the calculation, you will be paying an effective tax rate of 36%. And also, for illustrative purposes only, you can see that if you're making 30K per year, you will be paying for income tax around 24%, and it goes, as you can see, progressively to a 36 effective tax rate if you're making 100K. So it is scary, but not as scary as many people think. Also, as we mentioned, as Autónomo, you will be paying and filing income tax quarterly and also VAT. So normally you start the first year, you can pay 15% or 20% advanced income tax on your quarterly income. And then in the annual income declaration, you will pay the difference, whatever was left to pay, right? And also, once you become a Spanish tax resident, you have the obligation to report overseas assets by different categories. For example, you have bank account categories, real estate properties categories, cryptocurrencies, other rights held abroad. So if any of those categories are over 50,000 euros, for example, you have several bank accounts with a total of 56,000 euros outside of Spain, you have to declare the existence of all those bank accounts via the 720 form, that the deadline is the 31st of March the following year, okay? Always use a tax advisor or gestor to file these taxes because it's really, really complex, especially if you never live here and you don't speak the language, it can be really, really complex, okay? And this is a calculation, this is ballpark figures. People reported, or they ask how much really they get into their pocket once they have paid income taxes and Social Security contributions, starting at the minimum threshold for the digital nomad visa of 2,150 euros per month, going up to 10,000 euros. You can see it goes from 31%, let's say, deduction until 39% deduction for those monthly salary levels. If you're gonna go more in depth into the taxes, you can always join my free Spanish taxes webinar that I hold every 2 weeks, except maybe now during Christmas times, New Year's Eve, I will maybe change a little bit the dates, but you can also watch the recordings It's a 1-hour webinar that I always record, and you can watch them on Spainguru's YouTube channel. Now let's talk about the renewal of the visa. So we said that if you apply from a consulate, and you can get up to 1 year. If you apply from Spain, up to 3 years, okay? And then if you're after 3 years, you can renew for up to 2 more years, completing 5 years of legal residency. That potentially, if you comply with the requirements, you can apply for the long-term residency, right? So it's important. If you apply from the consulate as a contractor, for example, when you arrive to Spain, you have to register immediately as Autónomo, and also you have 30 days technically to get your residency or TA card, okay? And if you apply from Spain, once you get your visa granted, you need to get your Autónomo status immediately, and also as soon as possible, the residency card. That once you obtain the residency card, you will see that the starting date should match the day in which they granted you your visa, if it was from within Spain. Now you have the starting date of your TA card. You will see when it expires, depending on when they gave you the visa, 1 year, 3 years, 2 years. If, for example, you apply with a certificate of coverage that is valid 2 years, they should give you 2 years maximum. Although people have reported that they got the certificate of coverage or A1 for 2 years, and they got the visa for 3. And people are asking, like, what should I do? And the answer is, really, it stops the day in which you stop your coverage. Okay, they made a mistake giving you a visa for 3 years if your certificate of coverage is for only 2. So you have to be very, very careful, and you need to change your status to match your coverage, right? So when do you renew? The expiration date of your TA card, if there's no mistakes, 60 days before the expiration date, you can already file for the renewal, okay? So don't wait until the last minute, because many people file, there's a small mistakes, whatever, and then you still have time to fix those mistakes and get your renewal done, okay? So that's important, and technically also you can apply up to 90 days after the expiration date, but no one recommends that. Another thing worth mentioning is that countries in red in the map, these are called Ibero-American countries, together with Philippines and Andorra and Portugal, Guinea Equatorial. These are countries with cultural ties to Spain, an agreement, immigration agreement, that they don't have to wait the general 10 years of legal residency in Spain in order to apply for the Spanish citizenship. These countries can do it in 2 years only, and this is called also the 2-year fast track. Always remember, you can be outside of Spain more than 90 days each of the 2 years before you apply for citizenship. And the digital nomad residency, okay, applies and counts towards the 2-year fast track. So it's pretty cool for people who hold dual citizenships or hold these passports. Now, what's different when you renew your visa? You must still meet all the income, work, and legal requirements, and renewals will require updated income proof of the past 6 to 12 months, updated criminal record certificate from Spain, proof of continued remote work or business activity, confirmation of Spanish address, and up-to-date padrón empadronamiento, in this case, yes, and inform UGE within 30 days of any changes. Okay, a lot of people say that maybe they finalized the contract, they ended the contract, they lost their jobs, whatever. Supposedly, you have 30 days to inform of UGE of any changes that may happen or change the situation or status of your visa. All right, so let's talk about surprises when renewing the digital nomad residency. It's important that before submitting your documents that you are very organized from day one. So day one means the day that you got your visa granted, right? After that, you have to think or treat your renewal as a new application, okay? So keep your income statements, invoices, and client letters, social security payment records, self-employed. Monitor your income to ensure you meet the threshold every month, if that's possible. This is also a common question because many contractors, they have varying months and they ask like what will happen, etc. So depending who you ask, they tell you that they frame the information in a certain way so that it is very clear that you are over the financial threshold in the prior period. Update the empadronamiento if you move. And I recently filmed a video about this because this is called the Digital Nomad Visa, but in fact, the empadronamiento story is very unfriendly with going around Spain, because registering for an empadronamiento, it is a lot of paperwork. Let's say you have to go for the offices, you have to have a certain type of rental, usually over 6 months rental contract. The landlord has to also give you permission to so that you get your empadronamiento. So it is not really thought for moving around to get an empadronamiento, and unfortunately, that's a little bit of a bottleneck as well. Okay, so people recommend gathering documents, official certificates, etc., at least 4 to 3 months before the expiration, and you will have to get a background check also from Spain that has to be, of course, without pending legal issues. Okay, what to do when your A1 or certificate of coverage expires? Typically, maximum they cover up to 2 years, and when it expires, you have 3 options. You either apply for a renewal in your home country of the certificate of coverage, which is not always granted. Many people have trouble with this in the UK. You switch to Autónomo and register with Spanish Social Security, and you have to do that before your residency ends, okay, the pre-year residency ends, in order to not have interrupted residence periods that will then be a problem, or set the clock to 0 once you apply for the long-term residency. Another option convince your employer to register for Spanish Social Security, leave Spain temporarily, which will reset the clock, as we said, consider immigration pathways, different ones as arraigo, for example, non-lucrative visa, work permit, okay? So arraigo, you need to be regular, okay? You need to have been in Spain, legally or not, during at least 2 years, but when you apply, you need to be irregular, okay, or illegal. And non-lucrative visa, then you have to apply with either savings or enough passive income, or combination of the two, okay? And that's also another option if you have the possibility. Or switch to a regular work permit, which is working as a contractor with your own business, or working for a company, a Spanish company, who is sponsoring you, okay? So that's important. I remind you that I send you newsletters every single Monday, 15,000 readers, have a YouTube channel with almost 8,000 subscribers and more than 1,000 videos, more than 2,000 articles in the blog, and of course, a huge community via Facebook groups. You can join my other webinars. I have generally 6, 7, 8 webinars together with other partners as well, about Spanish taxes, non-lucrative visa, moving to Spain, etc., etc. So yes, I highly recommend you and I invite you to join and watch them. And you can find on Spainguru.es my personally vetted services. You can find them here. Yes, that can help you with the visa processing, or in general to move to Spain. You have also the Move to Spain checklist, okay, step by step. So this is a generic or general, let's say, timeline or roadmap for your move to Spain that is not thought about any specific type of visa. Of course, it will change depending on your situation, but it will inspire you or give you at least a starting point for structuring your move to Spain, depending on the timeline, how far you are from your intended move to Spain. You have all this information, and also Spanish destinations with the key factors to consider when choosing different cities or areas where to move, linked to updated services like WeatherSpark, Numbeo.com, etc., etc. Budget tools to calculate your own budget, gives you a free, videos and budget sheet, so that you have at least all the necessary lines here in your budget, so that you don't forget stuff and you're conservative in your budget when you're applying for Spain, moving to Spain. So all those informations, and of course the free newsletter that you can unsubscribe every single time. Well, it's 1 p.m. here. I unfortunately need to go very quickly today, but it was a pleasure hosting this webinar with you. Thank you so much for joining today. Thank you. If you leave a review on Trustpilot, I will really appreciate it. Really, really helps. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, which I will soon upload and send you to your emails, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel so that you can stay updated for any news related to this visa or generally about moving to Spain. Thank you so much for watching again. See you around. Have a wonderful week. And thank you so much again. Take care. Bye-bye.
Oh, and one more thing. Apparently YouTube says you're gonna love watching this video right here. I think you should watch it.